Hi, Grace. Oh, great. And go.
Hey,
Hey, Grace. Hi.
how's it going?
Great, great.
Good to see you in face.
Here. Ah, ready. Hi, everyone. We are waiting. Wait. Here. So, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? How's quarantine?
Well, the effects of the quarantine. A lot of,
Yeah, yeah. Me too. I've trimmed it a little bit. My hair is a lot longer though. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I have to cut my hair. Hi, everyone, Gustavo. I invite all the directors from Argentina, all Latin America, so they have seen your movies.
Fantastical.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to connect all the, yeah, I mean, the artists from different part of the world. So I have been talking to different, directors, writers from Europe, the United States, Latin America. So the idea is, start working together because, I think independent artists, filmmakers, they need to help each other, and it's going to be interesting to start, the collaboration between different cultures, right? So, well, that's a little the idea.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, I love your energy and how much, you're constantly trying to connect people, and that's a beautiful thing to do.
Yeah, I talked to Brandon about your projects. Have you contacted him?
I think we had an email, but I don't remember. Yeah, it didn't go anywhere yet that I know of. But
Hmm.
but it's possible I forgot to, so I'll look again or remind me.
Yeah, I in the interview I told you about your project with Borges because the crossing the floods, because he's a fan too. Actually, Star Trek episodes are based on Borges stories, so
Yeah, yeah.
maybe
So
he can help you with that.
yeah, we
Do
when
you
I talked
have
last
the
time, we
math?
talked about Borges a lot because Borges is a huge fan of mine. I'm a huge fan of his. Yeah.
Yeah, and have you and also I have how you say how Eugenia Levin, it's here in the watching us. It's the casting director here in Argentina. He works in the mainstream cinema here, and
Ah,
he
cool.
wanted to talk about you because he wants to try also to connect the casting directors. Do you know any casting director she can talk to?
Yeah, I know lots of casting directors here in LA, but yeah, just hook us up and we can talk about it.
Hi, hi, Eugenia. Hi, that's Eugenia. He worked with, a lot of movies with Ricardo Darin. I'm sure you know, you heard of him.
Who say the name?
Ricardo Darin,
Oh, right.
the one. So yeah, well, hi everyone. Yeah, there's uh, there are also a lot of filmmakers, young filmmakers from, they are starting to do, short films. They're amazing, really. So they wanted to know it because they wanted to ask you a lot of questions about, especially about the Tangle, because you told me that it's a low budget film. And here, well, low budget is the rule, not the exception. And they wanted to know how you managed to do that with I don't know how much you told it was. People were amazed about how the level the budget you use.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk a lot about that. I mean, again, I'm sure there's differences, and every location you're at has different things that you can get access to for cheap. And I think that's an important thing to always remember is there's production value lying around wherever you are. And sometimes it's your friend's house. Sometimes that you live in a place with beautiful natural scenery or amazing architecture that you can get from a public place or just depending on who that are friends that are get excited and can give you production value. So it's important. We're all competing. We're all on the same internet, right? So we're all competing with the biggest budget movies, and so you have to have something um, that you can offer something that's different, but also you want it to look professional, or else people just won't engage with it. So yeah, I've been doing indie low budget films for a long time as an actor, but as also as a filmmaker, and there's a lot
Mm.
of you know, it's just hard. It's hard work, but you know, it requires not, you know, not requires not lowering your standards just because you don't have money, you know.
Of course. Let's start from the beginning. I mean, people that have seen your movies, I told them that you start as a philosophy professor, and then you start, acting in low budget films, and start with Jamie Winans, who, by the way, I would like to talk to him, but he has disappeared from the earth, so it's difficult.
That's kind of how he is. So I can't. If he doesn't want to undisappear, I can't really make him. So.
So you start with short films, working with him. Actually,
true, actually.
And
as an actor, I started in theater, and then I started doing some short films and short projects. And one of them was with Jamin, and Jamin and I did a couple of short films, I think, before he did his first feature. And then his second feature, he wrote the main character with me in mind, which is Ink, which is what he's probably most known for at this point. And we're real proud of that. That was a huge project, and again, a very low budget project, and has a wide following. So yeah, that was an amazing experience, and I learned a lot from him about how to make original, high quality science fiction films on a budget. And that
here you,
fairness to him, that was done in 2008 or 2007 or whatever, and that the technology has gotten so much better now, so it is much easier to make a high quality film now for a lower budget. You have just access to much higher quality tools.
Yeah, Eugenia here is asking what's going on with the film industry right now because of the quarantine.
Yeah, as far as I know, and again, I'm not like Mr. in charge of anything, but everything's shut down still. So I know that there's a lot of people are working aggressively on pitching things right now, because that's what we can do on Zoom. So there's a lot of people pitching and trying to get projects ready for the future. But as far as I can tell, everything's shut down. SAG just put out new rules from the union perspective. SAG is the American Actors Union, and they just put out new rules about what would have to be required for how you would shoot it, and they're pretty strict. So we'll see how that develops. And but I don't think much is going on, but I think it might start up soon. Yeah.
What about now what a lot of people is doing is trying to create network. As I told you, I used the quarantine to start contacting a lot of people. It's the same in the US. They are trying to, and also script writing. Now a lot of people have time to write.
That's right. Again, I can't speak for everybody. We've all been in our own little cubbyhole. I've definitely been writing a ton, and that's been great. I've also been pitching a little bit, so that's been cool. But yeah, I mean, I think everyone's dealing with their own way, but this is definitely a period of time for either spiritual growth or writing or some kind of thing you can do when you're on your own, or working on your relationship, those kinds of things.
That's a good thing. And talking about your first short films, Monkeys and Chasseur, that people, you can see the short films in your account in Vimeo. They are all there.
Yeah,
I think.
Tell
me about
those two are yes.
Yeah, tell me about the experience, because you were an actor and then you decide to start, filming. You told me that Jamie Winans helped you in the beginning. How can you do a short film? I mean, which is the production process, and then how can you participate or profit from the festival participation? Because a lot of people ask me that about how can I do this, and then do after a few shorts on festivals. How can I do a longer film
Yeah, well. Again, everybody's route is different, and I think it's a mistake to ask one person and then expect that to be your route, because everything is still pretty haphazard. There's no guaranteed path towards anything. And also, film festivals, I don't know what's going to happen with film festivals going forward. It's I think it's going to be a big change with film festivals. So that's going to be a different world after this. I really think that's something that's going to change quite a bit. But for me, yeah, I mean, I've been a writer for decades, and I had made things before Chasseur, but Chasseur is the first thing I really showed people. So, you know, it takes practice to get good at these things. That's something I do want to remind everybody of. Obviously, we all want the next project we make to be the biggest project and the best project and everyone to love it. But the truth is, it takes time to get really good at this stuff. And you have to fail a lot of times usually. And if you don't, then great. But if you do, then great. You know what I mean? If you fail a couple times, you'll learn more and you'll get better. And by fail, I just mean it doesn't do what you want in the world, but that's something you can't control. So you just have to, keep making things that you want to make and get better and better at it. So Chasseur was honestly not even close to the first thing I made, but it's the first thing anybody really saw that I made that I was willing to really show people. And so many people are like, that's an amazing, they really like this film. And how did you do that? And it's not really my first film, like it's something I worked at it quite a bit. And again, I had help. There's just a few of us, but Jamin and Kiowa, who are both on Ink, were there. And the other person I was acting across from was my acting coach. So I had a lot of support. And I think that's what I just recommend to people when you're making your first thing. Get people who believe in you and who believe in the project and who you trust to be honest with you. And that's how you're going to have the most fun. And the only way you're going to do it, especially if you have no money, in a way that it has quality, right? Because if you just pick random people off the street who are willing to work for free, then they're not going to be that invested, and you're going to end up regretting it.
Yeah. Here, Brian is an actor here. He's asking you if you would come to do a movie or a mini series here in Argentina.
Of course, I would love to. I've never been to Argentina. I've been to Brazil and I've been to Peru and I've been to French Guiana, but I've never been to Argentina. I would love to go to Argentina, just to go to Argentina. So if you just want to invite me to Argentina and buy me a ticket, I'll come on out. But yeah. But to shoot something, yeah, of course, yeah, that would be fun. I've been fortunate, despite not having I'm not, I don't have a huge career or anything, but I feel really lucky that I've been on a lot of projects I really admire, and I'm really proud of being part of. So any good project that comes my way, that gives me an opportunity to do something interesting, I'm happy to look at it.
No, yeah, because now a lot of directors are using this time to write things, to start doing projects. I mean, everyone is like waiting the moment when the quarantine is over, so they can start shooting. There's like a lot of and that's a good thing. And Demian, now everyone, have you seen you knew Demian? Tell me about your encounter with Demian Rugna, the director of.
Oh yeah, we had a great evening, and it was great to talk to him. And what a pleasant guy, what a great guy, and he's got a great energy, and he's got a big project coming up. And that was before quarantine, so I don't know what's happened since then. You would know better than I. But I'm sure that got a little bit delayed by quarantine. So, but yeah, that was really fun, and I appreciate you hooking us up.
No, yeah, he's now a lot of people is asking.
Thank you,
Eugenia. He will call you for a casting.
Yeah, you call me next week.
And now a lot of people, fans of Terrified, they want him to write the sequel of Terrified too. Right. So they're very excited. And so another idea that came up, it's to do these short films, animated films in English and Spanish. Have you read the short story?
I haven't.
I send you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I've been very busy. No. But obviously, animation is a great way to go because you can just do it at home if you're clever enough.
Yeah.
So it's a great. I honestly was already thinking about that. I have another movie in the works which I don't think I've told you about, which is a meditation movie. Have I told you about that? So I've got a script that's outlined. It's a meditation script, like a sci-fi thriller meditation script. and a lot of it could be done on in computer. So I thought about yeah.
Yeah, I talk with directors here. Here, there's in Argentina, there's an explosion of movie, especially that directors that work science fiction and horror. Now they are, releasing a lot of movies right now, and there are a lot of movies have been filmed by Zoom. I mean, there's a lot of creativity. I think the quarantine was a good thing for the industry here, because a lot of people is like, okay, let's do things, let's start doing things. So I think, in this sense, I talk with a lot of directors about this idea of taking short stories and then do some illustration, music, and narrators, and they are happy to do it. So that's the idea. And you start from that, and then you start doing animation, then with actors. And tell me about the financing, because here people are starting to discover crowdfunding, and all that. Tell me about that experience, because it's an issue here. And Travis Milo, by the way, told me that the secret of financing is to do a list of a lot of rich people and then ask for money.
Genius. It's genius. Yes, that's a good way to do it. I was fortunate in terms of financing the first round of, Chasseur was made with no money, and then that gave me another producer who loved that hired me to direct his film that he wrote, and then he hired me to direct Monkeys, and so that was all taken care of. I didn't have to raise money, and then Monkeys plus Chasseur made it easy. There were investors that were immediately interested. I didn't even have to really pursue it, and my executive producer really did that. So that was very fortunate for me. But that's what you have to do. Yeah, you have to. And what you do is I think it's a mistake to try and sell people on they're going to make money. It's not, at this level of filmmaking, it's not really honest to promise an investor that they're going to make a lot of money. You can come up with a model where they probably will get their money back, but they're not going to make a lot of money most of the time unless something amazing happens. So you have to pitch them on the cachet and on the excitement, on being part of the film industry. And a lot of people want to do that. A lot of people want to see art made, and they want to see how films are made, and they want to be part of that experience. So that's something, if you have rich friends and they're willing to, and they believe in you, then yeah, ask them. But part of that is also having a really responsible budget, really figuring out what you can do. And, before I made the Tangle, I had Crossing the Flood. I already written that script, and I sort of wanted to make that, but it was starting to feel like too big of a budget. So I sat down and I wrote the Tangle, because I was like, I think I can do I think I can raise this money. I'm not sure I could raise that money.
Talk to Brannon. Maybe he can produce that. He will be, if it's based on Borges, he will be interested. Brannon.
Oh,
Brannon
okay.
Braga.
Right.
He and he has the leverage to do it. So
okay,
could,
cool. Yeah.
And then what about Infinity Chamber? How did you met Travis? That's because it's a low budget film, but it's not so low as Travis told me.
It's a low budget film. It's a lower budget than Ink was, but it comes across as as having a lot of quality. So Travis met me on an audition for a different film that he was trying to produce and write. And Travis is an amazing writer, and he's just constantly generating ideas and scripts. And he constantly wants to make his own movies. That's what he wants to do. But his scripts are so good that he constantly ends up selling his scripts because people want to buy them. So, that was a film he had cast me in, and then, he ended up selling the script, and there's big names attached. I know Nick Cage was attached for a little while. So that's funny. But we met for coffee one day, and he was telling me again about new scripts he wanted to do, and he had a couple, and I was just like, just make it yourself. And he decided not to he didn't even tell his manager, I don't think he was writing it. And he just went and rented a warehouse where he could build, and he started building the set even before he finished the script. And he wrote that one with me in mind. I was very fortunate, both Ink and Infinity Chamber. Those were roles that were written with me in mind, as I didn't really have to I did not audition for either of those roles. And I think at the level of independent film, that's how it has to be to a degree. You have to find people you believe in that are cool and interesting that you already know, because it's got to be a labor of love at first.
Then you have an appearance in the movie The Frame, Jamie Winans' last one. It was great. I think Jamie Winans, when he writes story, he has this mind. He come up with these stories. What was your experience working in The Frame? You play like the devil or something like that.
Something like
I think
that. My character is technically called the Mechanic.
The Mechanic.
That's the name of the character. But yeah, it has a devil-like character. The Frame is an amazing movie. I mean, I think it's an amazing movie. In some ways, it's my favorite movie of his. I don't think it's as crowd-pleasing necessarily, but it's a really, really cool idea. And for me, it was amazing. I'm going to give this away, but I don't think it matters really. I essentially play three different characters in that movie. And so a big part of my experience in that movie was transforming into those characters. Two of them have heavy prosthetics and heavy makeup. And I'd done that on ink already, which was, again, sort of playing two roles. But a big part of that was, getting the excitement of getting to create three characters, and differentiate them and yet somehow connect them. So that was super fun. And again, I recommend that film to anybody who likes smart sci-fi. It makes you think. It might be worth watching twice. It's not like you don't immediately necessarily get it, but there's a lot going on in that movie. Really cool.
Yeah, it's more like the circular ruins of Borges, because it's the dreamer that is dreamed by another person and vice versa. I think that's the main idea, the idea of the infinite. You put two mirrors together and the reflection. I think, and also it's a metaphor for the writing process. But that's my interpretation. What's yours? I mean, you have the chance to talk to Winans, so.
I mean, with The Frame, I knew that script was being written, I think, all the way back when we were doing ink, and or right afterwards, because I saw very early versions of that. So I'm not going to give you any interpretations, because I think that's up for everybody else. But I love what you just said. I think I never thought about it that way. But yeah, there's this really cool question of where's the bottom of reality in that movie. And that's super, super cool. And which point of view is privileged? And that's not clear. That's very, very cool. I do think there's also a kind of, like you said, a God and the devil kind of idea in there. And it's interesting to think about it in those terms. Also because the devil is not, the evil of the devil is a little bit different than you might think of in a normal sense of evil. It's not like he's going around murdering people. There's a different kind of sense of evil in there that's maybe more subtle and super interesting. Yeah. And I love the filmmaking too. There's a big twist near the end, which is just, I think, really, really interesting, and how it's pulled off at a filmic level is really interesting. It's not just, so when you're saying it's about writing, I think that's right, but it's specifically about film writing. It's about filmmaking. That's definitely part of it.
And you were in a suspense crime mystery film called Murder Made Easy or something like that.
Yeah, you've seen
and I have noticed you have you have you also I think suspense crime stories. Am I right? And the Tangle, it's in a way a murder story.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do you have this influence? I think, right? What was the experience of working in this kind of films, the mystery, murder?
To me, writing is all about mystery. So even if it's not a murder mystery, you're always, most movies you could tell the story in about a paragraph if you just wanted to tell people what happened. But telling a story, drama, is about leaving things unsaid and waiting to tell them in the right way, in a certain way. So everything's about mystery. And when you set up a story, there's always a question mark at the center of it. You're like, what? And it's like, how is X going to happen? Or what's the answer to this? So every story is, to me, a mystery story in a way. So So I don't know. To me, the filmmaking wasn't that different because of the murder of the mystery aspect of it. But yeah, they were both fun, and you know, Murder Made Easy is its sort of whole genre in itself. It's like a comic Alfred Hitchcock kind of thing,
Mm.
and it was a real pleasure. Um, challenging. It was a challenging movie. I was sick for most of that movie. I had a deathly flu. Speaking of the flu, the whole time. But but it was, yeah, it's a fun movie.
Yeah, and also there is another short film I couldn't find called something the Interception, a short film you direct actually. Uh, it's something the Interception, or I don't know. I
I
found
didn't
it, but
direct
I couldn't.
that. Whatever that is, I didn't direct it. I might have been in something, but I've been in a lot of things. So yeah, you'll have to
Yeah,
remind me. I don't know. I don't know what that one is. Sorry.
no, no, yes, it's a short film, and you
Okay.
play the something. But it's difficult to find. And the Tangle, people are asking me about where they can watch the Tangle.
So the Tangle, we were going to premiere it in Los Angeles when this all happened, so we got pushed back a little
Mm.
bit. So right now we're figuring out where we're going to release it. We're going to release it directly. Um, we'll either go DVD or VOD, and then we'll go to streaming. We'll do that normal path, and we'll let everybody know when it's available everywhere. Um, I'm not sure. We might start with Australia or England and then come back to the US and then go to other foreign territories. So if you have access to those markets, that would be the first place to look. And then we'll obviously try to come to all the Argentina, all the markets.
Mm. Yeah, the interesting thing about the Tangle, it's I mean,
You're one
I
of
always
few who've
tell.
seen it, so
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for that. It was an excellent film. It's remind me a lot to a theater play because in a way it can be done in theater. Have you thought about doing a theater version? Because now in here as we there's a lot of sci-fi in theater. It's very interesting because they work with dialogues.
I've never thought about doing the Tangle in the theater, but of course, yeah, it's, you know, a lot of these low budget films are you're going to have minimal locations, right? Because that helps save money. So you know there are a few locations, but they could be done on a stage. It's true. I know. I never thought about that. That could be interesting. That could be interesting.
Mm. And the interesting thing about this movie, it's a dystopian, I think, but at the same time, it's like a police story. How, where did you get the idea of doing first the context? I mean, the idea of everyone connected in a way that everyone knows what is doing the other person, and then the idea of an impossible crime that's something I think is in the tradition of Arthur Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes, the idea of this is impossible, so but it happened. So how was the creative process of getting the idea?
So again, with the Tangle, it's sort of embarrassing to say. Like I said, I was going to make Crossing the Flood, and we didn't have enough money. So I was like, we're going to make something, and so I sat down and I wrote it. So what I did is I wrote what I know, and I know hard science fiction. Like hard science
Mm.
fiction is that's what I grew up on. I read science fiction. I think I have a degree in physics. I think about science and pop science a lot. Um, this idea of everyone connected is not that far from where we are now. There's a lot of people, putting that idea in science fiction, and this was just one way I thought about it. And, it has a kind of 1984-esque quality, but in with our technology as opposed to the way that came about. And I love, as I said, I like mystery. I think all writing is mystery, and I think the idea of a locked room mystery or an impossible murder is a great idea. It's also a great idea for a low budget film because if the locked room itself becomes one of the main locations, and by its nature is not going to take you out of that room very far. So I think that just came to my mind in that sense. Yeah. So I don't know how. Again, I literally wrote that in a couple weeks, and that doesn't mean I'm very proud of that script, but in some ways it was something that was it wasn't an effort for me because it was like, that's the kind of story I'm always thinking about.
What was the experience also to work with your partner? Because you work together in Monkeys and now in, well, and also in Murder Made Easy and now in the Tangle.
Yeah, I mean, the Tangle, she was also, you know, both Monkeys and Chasseur, she helped produce it as well. And so we did all that work together. Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing experience. It's Monkeys was challenging because we actually it was shot in here in this room. You can, if you look over here, this yellow wall, we painted yellow for Monkeys. If you ever watch Monkeys, you'll see the behind the bed is this is our living room. We made the living room into the bedroom, and so we were living on the set, so that's super challenging. You know, you never get to leave the movie. The Tangle, you know, it was. I mean, honestly, her performance is my favorite performance, and that's no knock on all the other performances, which I think are amazing. She's my favorite performance in that, and so that was really fun. It's one thing when you really know somebody really well, and they trust you to give them notes, and then they. So I can, you know, I could see what needed to. I could be a helpful director, and she could hear what I was saying. So that was fantastic. I really love her performance in that, and. Yeah, it's a totally unique thing to do. But again, you sort of have to do this. If you're going to make these kind of films, you have to work with people you trust and you're willing to spend a lot of time in close proximity with. So that can be bad for a relationship, but it also might be the exact right person to do it.
And what about the other actors? The other actors, Nicole Silva, she's very popular in Australia. I have an Australian friend who told me, "Oh yeah, how can you convince him to be in your movie?" Also, Joshua, this other actor, I saw him in.
Yeah, they're both amazing in the film. So yeah, Nicole De Silva is quite well known for a show called Wentworth. Not just in Australia, but she has worldwide fans, especially in the LGBTQ community, because that character is representative, so she's well known, again, especially in Australia. So we got her because Josh is a good friend of mine. Josh was in Chasseur. Josh was my acting coach when I first moved to LA, and then we became really good friends. And he, you know, so I wrote that role with him in mind. And he was willing to shave off his head and grow that big beard, and yeah, he's amazing, and he's been in The Pacific and The Night Of and a dozen TV shows. He's a very well-established TV actor, and he's great. But one of his best friends is Nicole De Silva, and I just happened to write this other role. So the Nicole De Silva role, I originally wrote it as a man, and this is actually Jessica's suggestion was to make it into a female character. And I think it's awesome. It made it harder to cast though, because it's a very specific kind of female character. It's a very masculine female character in a lot of ways. And Nicole had, you know, Josh was like, Nicole would be perfect for this. And so she, you know, she really came on, she liked the script, she liked the role, but you know, she's a good friend of Josh too. So yeah, that was how that happened. We didn't go out in the world and find her. She found, the world gave her to us. So we were very lucky.
She plays like the bad cop. Well, everyone is the bad cop there, but she's like the mean cop.
That's right. Yeah, I think there's a line that it's good cop, bad cop, genocidal cop was the line. So yeah.
Yeah, and tell me, Eugenia asked me about the casting process in the U.S. As an actor and also as a producer or director. Can you describe the casting process in the U.S.?
I mean, it's different for every project, and I wouldn't, you know, I don't know if it's that different from how it would be there. So TV can be different from film, and you know, for my indie films, a lot of those are just casting from people I know already. You know, that's just the easiest way to do it, especially since we can't offer very much. So, but I've been involved in big casting. I've been involved as an assistant on some big movies, and you know, the process is normal. It's like you know, a bunch of people audition on tape the first round. Sometimes they'll come into a room and audition there, but even then it's usually on tape for the main casting director. And then they'll get called back, and they'll either get called back to tape. Now things are a lot more on tape, or they get called back to the room, and then in the room they're with often with the director and with the main casting director and with maybe some of the producers. And you know, it's a pretty normal process. I don't know if that's any different than you would do it down there.
There is I want to ask you, would you like to adapt a story or a sci-fi novel? If you had the chance, I mean, if you find a producer that say, okay, let's do it, which would be the story or the novel you would like to adapt?
I'm not going to answer that question because, yeah, I'm working on, there's one project, there's one novel I want to adapt, but it's actually out of copyright. So it's a little bit older. It's like early 20th century. So I actually don't want to give the idea to anybody else. But, so that's one. So that one I won't tell you. Let me think of some others though. I mean, you know what, ones I would love to do would be the Out of the Silent Planet series by C.S. Lewis. Yeah. So the first two movies, I'm not sure. I have to think about, but That Hideous Strength, which is the third one, is I think it would be an amazing movie, especially for the time period we're in now. So that's one. There's a lot of interest. Did you say non-science fiction or just science fiction?
Science fiction, but if you like also non-science fiction,
definitely science fiction comes to mind. I would also like to do in Isaac Asimov. I would like to do Caves of Steel. So they made a movie called I, Robot, which is sort of based on it. But I'd like to do Caves of Steel, which is a mystery, a straight up detective kind of novel. But I really like the world that's created in there, and no one's done it. I don't know why nobody's done that, because it's pretty much like a movie. It's like it's a script that's just like the book's like a movie. So that would be a fun one, and it'd be fun to make it a little artsier than the novel itself. There's some fun science fiction ideas in there that I haven't seen. So in Caves of Steel, there's this idea of so the way to get on like the subway, and there's these mega cities. So like the whole East Coast of the United States is one city, you know, and the way to get on the subway is that there's like moving conveyor belts, and they're all moving slightly faster than each other. So you just get on the slow one, and then you go to the faster one, and it never stops. So the subway's just going all the time, and you just get on and off. And it's like, I think that'd be cool to make in a movie.
And what can you tell us about Crossing the Floods? I know it's based on a kind of inspired in like a Borges story, the Library of Baba. What can you tell us about the story?
Yeah,
you have to do the pitch for all the people here.
Yeah. You know, that one I haven't been thinking about recently as much, so it's not as forefront in my mind, and this may change, so don't hold me to this. But the original script, and I have a more or less completed script there, is about two men. They appear in a room, and they don't know how they got there, so it's that kind of script. They don't know where they are. And when they finally get out of that room, they realize that they're in a set of, originally it was a hotel in my mind, this might change, but they're in a set of infinite hallways and infinite stairwells. That sort of comes from the Library of Babel. And the movie is about them trying to get out and trying to figure out where they are. And there's a third character that is repeated throughout. And she, how do I explain what she's doing? There's a famous philosophical thought experiment called the Chinese Room. I don't know if you've heard of it. And
I think
it's about something about artificial intelligence and about whether an artificial intelligence can understand. And so she's sort of implementing a version of what looks like a Chinese room. And according to the John Searle, I'm just taking that purely from the philosophical article. That's not what's actually in the movie, but if that's the quickest way to suggest what's going on there. So we see 1,000 versions of her as well. So it's a weird, very bizarre, surrealistic movie, but could be done for a relatively low budget because we keep reusing the same halls and the same rooms over and over again. The other movie that I would recommend, that I would say it's similar to, is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. So they're having a lot of weird, bizarre conversations as they proceed.
Well, that would be interesting. You are planning to start filming it as soon as the quarantine ends, or
No, I have no idea what I'm filming next. I don't know what's up next. I haven't really been working on production. I've been working on writing a lot, trying to get the Tangle stuff finished, that business side of it. I don't know what'll be next. It may be Crossing the Flood. It may be the meditation movie. We'll see.
Ah, well, good. Great. And tell me, we took for the first interview, we talk about writers and your favorite writers. And there's a name that came up was Stanislaw Lem, you know, the Polish.
Yeah.
What about him? Do you think he has inspired you in the subjects you develop in your movies? Because I think the Tangle has something of Lem. I don't know. I felt that.
That's interesting. I love Solaris, and I've read a few of his other novels. I have to admit that the other novels haven't, for the most part, stuck with me that much. I feel like he's a novelist that you'd want to read in the original language, which I can't do. But Solaris is one of my favorite books ever. But I have to say, he's one of those, not like Borges, that's how I think. So like Borges, I'm like, I want to make movies like this. But Lem is like, he's like one of those things you admire, but I'm not sure how he did it. You know, I would never have written something. I'm like, how did you pull that off? Solaris is an amazing book. What did I take from Solaris? You know, one thing I love about Solaris is there's a kind of element of horror in that comes, it's a kind of metaphysical horror. It's like a horror that just comes from really taking into account what your actual metaphysical condition is. You know what I mean? And we can do that in other ways, just like realizing we're mortal could be a horror, right? You wouldn't have to actually be killed. You could just sit there going, oh, I'm going to die. And there's something about that in Lem, which I do try to get into. It has affected me, and I do try to, I love the metaphysics. I love thinking about what is it like to actually be alive? You know, what is it to be a being? You know, like we just skip over all that, but like the story you're telling is all within this idea that you're assuming X, you know, so I like that about that.
What about the horror genre? Here, there's a lot of directors, well, Demian, including there's also all other one, Fabian Forte, that I think they are trying to do also the remake. Do you have? We talk about a movie. I always recommend the original, the Jacob's Ladder, Adrian Lane, Jacob's Ladder. It's amazing, and in a way, it's kind of metaphysic. Have you read the Cortázar story? I sent you. Remember the Night Face Up? Because I always thought they use it to do the movie.
I might have. I can't remember now. I love Jacob's Ladder. Yeah. So I'm not a big horror person. I'm not knowledgeable about the horror genre in the way some people are. Obviously, I've watched a lot because I watch movies, but Jacob's Ladder to me is like. Transcends the genre because it's metaphysical and it's got a really cool twist and I love it stylistically too. It also has a whole bunch of stuff about there's a whole Meister Eckhart side thing in there, and Meister Eckhart is a big mystic, and I'm a meditation teacher as well, so I love that element of it as well. So I don't know if you know that. Yeah, we both teach. Jessica and I both teach meditation. I often teach it here now because of quarantine. So yeah. And Meister Eckhart is a medieval mystic in the Christian tradition, but an amazing writer.
No, yes, it's incredible. I didn't see a remake, and I won't see I don't want to see the remake.
I don't either. Yeah, I don't either.
No, because I think something, I mean, there's a lack of, well, I have this discussion with many directors in the interviews. It seems that to find new ideas, you have to go to the indie, environment. Because the mainstream film nowadays, if they are rebooting, repeating, would you agree with that? They are like afraid of, doing something new. That's the impression we have.
Yeah, it's hard for me to know historically how different it is. I think that's probably always been true to some degree, right? You know, the business side of things is going to want to repackage what they already know what works. So we just have to expect that. But I've gone to a lot of film festivals, and there's a lot of indie filmmakers just remaking big budget films with low budget projects. That's not a good idea either. So. you know, it's fine if you want to learn to make a film, but that's not where you're going to see originality. So yeah, you know, from the United States perspective, I definitely think there's a lot more originality in indie film and in foreign film. And, you know, that, but of course there's a sense in which the only films that come to the United States from foreign territories are going to usually be sort of something with some originality. So I don't know if that's true as a general rule, but, yeah, I mean, you know, what I would say is when I was growing up, you know, maybe 30 years ago, there was this, you know, the word processor had really changed everything. Now everyone could go home and write a novel. It was actually hard to write a novel, like physically, like you had to do a typewriter and you had to like, it was hard, like to organize it in your head. And you know, there was just an explosion of amazing novels at the end of the 20th century, and that's still continuing to some degree. And I think we're in the same place with film. The technology is getting to the point where a lot more original voices, and not just white male voices, but original voices from different cultures, different parts of the world, different ethnicities, and different class levels, all those things, can actually make a film and tell their unique story. So I think we're in a period where there's going to be an explosion of really cool, interesting, you know, vibrant films made. And they might not be the ones that are seen in the theaters, you know, seen in the big complexes. Who knows if they'll even survive this virus? But they'll be on the internet and places you can stream them. You know. So.
And what about technology? I mean, because a lot, yeah, I was doing, I saw there is I was watching a conversation between Fabian Forte, his director, and another one from here, Gonzalo Calzada, and I don't know if he's watching this. And they say the problem now is that with technology, this could affect the storytelling. I mean, and we don't know how it's going to happen. What do you think is going to change because of technology? Because now everything is changing. I mean, I'm talking about CGI. I'm talking about the possibility of, you know,
I mean,
it's going to be negative, positive.
Yeah, undoubtedly. Art is the creation of the art. We always just think of the product, but I think art is really about the creation of it, and the product is a different experience. And you know, I go back to writing. You know, when I grew up, people might start writing longhand. You know, and that's not how I compose. I compose on a word processor, and that just changes the way you write because. From the beginning, I'm already editing, I'm already revising, I'm immediately changing words, I'm immediately restructuring the sentence. So it just changes the kind of art that gets made. And the same thing is happening with film, and I couldn't even tell you. I would say one thing, though, which is that restrictions are really good for artists. So having limits is really good because it forces you to come up with puzzles that solve puzzles that you wouldn't otherwise solve. And I think we see some of that. We see some of that in the mainstream movies where they have as much money as they want, and they're somehow just super boring because it's like, okay, yeah, you know, Superman can do anything. He can lift a building. He can da-da-da-da. And it's like, all right, once you've seen one building lifted, you've seen another. Like once there's no limit because of the technology, it actually kills the story in some sense. And so, you know, looking to films that have to work within their limits, I think generates originality. But absolutely at the low budget level, we now have access to more possibilities than we did before. And I think it's useful for filmmakers to think about the tools they have, and think about not just how to tell the story they want to tell, but think about how to tell a story with these tools. You know what I mean? You might tell a slightly different story when you start thinking about what restrictions you have. If someone says, hey, tell me the story of your childhood, but you have to do it with chalk on the cave wall, it's going to be really different than if someone says, tell me the story of your childhood, but you can write it out in longhand, or tell me the story of your childhood, but you can only do it in audio, or tell me the story of your childhood, but you can only use visual but no dialogue. Like, it's just obviously going to be super different, but it might be very different if it says, tell me the story of your childhood, but you only get 3 characters, and you you know, you can only use this effect. You know, there's no other, you don't get to do any other CGI, you know what I mean? Or whatever, you know? So yeah, I don't know. I can't say how it's going to change things, but I think it absolutely will. It always has. Art will change, you know? The film as an art is a very new art. So, who knows if it'll even be vibrant in 100 years? It'll probably might very well be something else. It might be video games or something else.
A lot of filmmakers here in the that are starting they asked me to ask you about how to participate in different festivals, because here we are starting to realize there's a lot of festivals all over the world. So
yeah.
What advice would you give them?
Again, I don't know what festivals are going to look like after COVID. It might be really different, but you just, you know, there's, I don't know for Argentina, but you know, there's things like Film Freeway, and they've been changing. You just have to find, there's sites where you can submit to any number of festivals. You just upload your film and then you pay for each festival individual. You know, it can be expensive to submit to a lot of film festivals, and you should expect to get rejected, even if your film is really good. All my films have won festivals. Like they've won the highest prize in a festival, and they've also been rejected from 9 out of 10 festivals. So, you know, there's just a lot of films out there. Everyone's making movies, and not every film festival has a lot of people watching films. They can only watch so quickly. So, you know, that you just have to expect it. If you want to go that route, you're going to have to spend a little money and expect to get rejected a lot. If you know somebody in a festival, that's probably the best way. If you know someone who runs a festival, or you know other people who've been in the festival before, you know, that might be the best way to say, what are they looking for? What, you know, is there a way you can mention them, make sure they watch my film, and that kind of thing. And festivals can be great, and they only do so much for you, right? So I think it's fun to do for a little while. And then there's some big festivals which are really important. But after you've done a couple of films, you know, it's maybe not as important, because, you know, it can be enjoyable because you get to socialize with other filmmakers and get to see other films. But in terms of getting your name out there or getting your product seen, you know, so people know you're a filmmaker, you know, it's at a certain point there will be a diminishing return.
Okay. How do you want to be remembered?
That's an interesting question. I've never really thought about that. I'm not too worried about it. You know, I want to be able to live my life making really rich objects, you know, making a rich life and having rich artwork being part of that. And yeah, I guess if people were to remember me for the work I've done, I hope that that's what they get to remember me for, is a really unique, you know, for instance, I feel really proud of the Tangle. Whatever anyone else thinks about it, doesn't matter. I feel pretty confident no one else would have made that movie. That's my movie. Like, no one else is making that movie, that particular movie. It's an original movie. That doesn't mean it's good, and that doesn't mean it's something everybody would like. But I'm happy to continue doing that. Like, make things that are really expressions of my point of view, and I think if everyone does that, we have a richer world and a more exciting world.
Yeah, no, and I know I'm also, I mean, very excited about all this opportunity. That's, you know, that's why I'm trying to contact all these independent, you know, filmmakers. You know, a lot of filmmakers there we can do an exchange. You can talk with filmmakers here. I can talk with filmmakers there. And we can, because the idea is I love the idea of building something together, because it's for me, it's fun to do all this, you know, to introduce people. For me, it's fun because, I mean, I like to write and I'm doing short film, but at the same time, I'm a fan and I want to see this story made. So say, come on, go, call him and do the movie. And I think in that sense, it's a very interesting period to be a storyteller, writer, scriptwriter. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I think that, and I love that energy from you. That's something I think other people have it, but you definitely have a high dose of that real, like, let's bring things together, let's make things happen. I think that's beautiful. And my favorite thing about doing film, as you know, I've always been a writer and I love writing. There's something nice about writing because no one can stop you. You can just sit down and do it. But there's something amazing about theater and film, which is the collaborative process. And other than, opera, there's really nothing like it, where you're getting people of all different types of creativity and different voices all working together to make one project. And at the indie level, it's even more that way because you're just really dependent on asking people, so you don't get to just dictate, you know what I mean? You have to work with people, and honestly, I think you get a better product that way when you really allow people to bring their voice to things. And so it would be so cool. Like I don't know if this will happen, but I think it's so cool what you're doing. I would love to suddenly be working with an Argentinian director on something, and someone from Peru and someone from Russia. Like that would be fun and enriching, Yeah, I think it's beautiful.
And by the way, have you tried the mate? I know it's an acquired taste. I know the alfajores also, they're very sweet. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've tried the mate. I don't even drink coffee or caffeinated tea. I've always been I don't really do that very much, but I've had the mate and I don't mind it. I told you I had a roommate, Argentinian roommate, and he just drank the mate all day long. So I had to have tried it back then. And yeah, and thank you for the, how do you, ¿cómo se dice?
Alfajores. Alfajor.
Oh yeah, those were so good. I kept telling Travis I have them, and I still have Travis's. I haven't been able to give them to him yet. So.
Oh, yeah, because I talked with a lot of friends there, and they told me they are so sweet. They are too much for the. I mean, they are not. They are in the United States. They are not used to that level of sweetness of the alfajores. They are very sweet.
They're good. Yeah, they're very, very good. I don't think anyone. I don't. Most people don't mind sweetness here. So.
Yeah. And tell me about I ask a lot of we are doing in the fan scene. I am asking all the directors to give recommendations, sci-fi and horror. Like top 10. What films would you recommend, or suggest to all the people who are watching, and then we'll watch the video.
Oh, you should have warned me. So my favorite top 10 sci-fi, or just like things I think people should check out?
Just
Well, I mean, Blade Runner is one of my favorite films, and that's obviously everybody's probably seen that already. And the Tangle is obviously heavily influenced by that as well. That's one of my favorite science fiction films of all time. I'm just going to do what's popping into my head. These aren't necessarily my favorite films of all time, but they're interesting films. Annihilation was super interesting, if you saw that.
Yeah.
That was a very interesting film. I think it's flawed in certain ways, but it was really original and original in energy. Like it really created a feeling and almost a Solaris kind of metaphysical horror to it, which I thought was really worth watching. What's interesting that's come to mind, we were talking about the collaborative element, and Beasts of the Southern Wild, that was an Oscar nominee a few years ago. It's not really science fiction, but came to mind as we've been talking because it's that was made by a collaborative art co-op, essentially. That was not a director who said, I'm going to make this movie and da-da-da. It was an art co-op of people who all sort of contributed together to make something. So that's an interesting movie that's coming to mind. My favorite films are, Tarkovsky's one of my favorite filmmakers. So if you haven't seen Tarkovsky, I like The Sacrifice, probably my favorite, one of my favorite. It's a great movie. And not really science fiction, but.
No. And what about foreign films? Have you seen any Argentinian film?
I probably have, but honestly, it's not coming to mind right now. So I wouldn't know, and I wouldn't have picked them out as specifically Argentinian. I wouldn't have thought about it too seriously as being an Argentinian movie. It just would have been to me a South American movie of some sort. But yeah.
I can send you some.
Please do. Yeah.
Yeah. I send you the Sleepwalker of Fernando Spinner. He's an amazing sci-fi director.
Okay.
is incredible. I mean, it's incredible. And also the corporation of Fabian Forte, because really here there's people there are amazing directors here that do incredible things. I mean, in all Latin America.
You will send me those.
The Sleepwalker, I send you the link. You can watch it in Vimeo with